Everyone, welcome back to the show. Excited to be with you here today on our Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday, where we are going to be focused on how to eat seasonally this spring. So I know that spring has sprung for most of this, at least in this part of the hemisphere. I will be doing a new show based on this, on Ayurvedic principles each season. So for sure, over the next 12 months, we'll have a spring, we'll have a summer, we'll have a fall, and we'll have our winter, and then we'll be able to use these each year as well. So again, in Ayurveda, one of the big things that was always taught was you need to live with one in nature. So it's really interesting because I've spent many, many months over in India, and I spent about 2 months over in Sri Lanka as well. And one of the biggest takeaways was that how much healing actually has to do with being in unison and in rhythm with the world around us. That was honestly one of my biggest takeaways. So I get interviewed all the time, and people are asking, what did you learn from your 2,350 internship hours studying all over the world? And I always say that I learned two main things. I learned that healing, getting well, losing weight, living longer is oftentimes a subtractive process rather than an additive one. And that typically triggers an interesting conversation from there, because in our Western-based mindset, but meaning Western-based mindset is like all of, Western Europe, all of Australia, all of, the UK, Canada, the US, like we have a Western-based mindset, which means more is always better, right? More is always better. What's the latest drug? What's the latest neurotransmitter, biohack? What more can we add to our life in order to take our health, our body transformation, our anti-aging based protocols to the next level? And I don't agree. I mean, I do agree, I should say, that we do need to add some things. There's no doubt about it. However, a body that is not balanced and not well and overweight already has an accumulation. Okay, it has an accumulation typically. It's bogged down. And in order to then be able to add more, where our liver doesn't already have to process more in the first place, meaning like give your liver a break. That's why we're such huge advocates of functional medicine detoxes, which opens up those liver pathways. That's why they've been used again for thousands of years, just in different ways. That then allows the new to come in and actually take hold. So again, traditional naturopaths knew this as well. Even people who are suffering from weight loss oftentimes did certain fasts, and the fasts allow them to do what? Subtract, and then they began to add back in, and their body could then finally absorb it, right? If you have candida overgrowth, if you have bacterial overgrowth, if you have H. pylori, if you have parasites, you need to subtract, you need to remove them so that you can then improve your stomach acid, improve your enzymes, improve your microflora, your bacteria in your gut. You only are able to do that when you start to remove some of those things that shouldn't be there. So I don't want that to turn into today's show, but what I do want to share with you is that I'm telling you right now, the answers that we are searching for have, for the most part, already been discovered. They've been discovered, and now we need to rediscover and relearn them from a 21st century now perspective, okay? So we need to understand them from a different mindset, because they don't look the same that they did 5,000 years ago. They just don't. When these things were being written down 5,000, 6,000 years ago, things were different, of course, right? They were different. They didn't have any of these man-made chemicals. They didn't have the farming systems that we have today, for better or for worse. They didn't have these medications, again, for better or for worse. So what we want to do is we just want to understand that there are two things that I learned that I wanted to share with you. One was the subtractive process. Of course, that's what we use in our practice, and that's why I've been fortunate to learn this and now pass it on to others. And of course, it works, right? Because it's worked for thousands of years. This is not new. And the other part is this, is that rhythms of the body really matter. So our body, we overlook it, but our nervous system is one of the most important factors that conventional medicine never talks about. I mean, I don't think I ever hear conventional medicine talk about the nervous system. I hear chiropractors talk about it. I hear acupuncturists talk about it. I hear naturopathic doctors talk about it. I hear osteopathic doctors talk about it. There are a lot of people, of course, our IHPs are always talking about the HPA axis, HPT for thyroid, and HPG or HPO, however you want to refer to it, for hormones for men and women. But it's what needs to be talked about, because your nervous system is part of the periphery of your body, your peripheral nervous system, which is always taking its cues from your environment. Hot, cold, windy, sunny. Is the sun rising? Is the sun setting? All of these things affect our hormones, our neurotransmitters. I mean, a really good example is just seasonal affective disorder. Some people are in a lower mood or more depressed during the darker months of the year. They feel better when it's more sun. Well, what is that? That's part of our peripheral nervous system, right? That's part of our eyes and our skin receptors, sensing the light and the brightness and the sunnier days and the sun rising earlier and setting later. And that affects what? Well, it affects everything from our endocrine system, our hormones, to our neurotransmitters. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. So this is what Ayurveda teaches. Traditional Chinese medicine teaches it as well, which was also adopted from Ayurveda, but then used in its own way in mainland China. So what I want to share with you today is they also talked about eating seasonally, because when you eat seasonally and the food is picked fresh, you can oftentimes get more than double the nutrients. That's a huge deal. Okay. Now, if you get double the nutrition, meaning micronutrients, remember, the reason why people, and that's why you can't have surface knowledge of this. It's very, very important. If you only have surface knowledge, someone's going to come along and say, it doesn't matter. If you pick an almond in May versus September, it has the same 11 grams of fat, 8 grams of carbs, 4 grams of protein. They're going to just give you the macros. I get it. I understand it. I understand the macros. Here's the thing. But the micros are different. All right. So macronutrients are your carbs, your fat, and your protein. It's part of the genetic makeup of that food. That will not change. However, the micronutrients will change dramatically based on the soil it is grown in, the amount of sun it gets, water it gets, fresh air it gets, and if it's allowed to ripen naturally, not ripen in terms of being gassed inside of a store, which is how they ripen bananas and many other types of tomatoes, etc. And that's not going to have all the micronutrients, because you need to let things vine ripen or ripen and then pick at their proper time of the year. And everything has its proper time of the year. That's what I want to share with you here today. And then I'm going to give you how to find your local farmers markets, because if you purchase locally, you're going to purchase fresh in season. You're going to get a lot more nutrition. Now, why does this matter though? Well, again, I'm not perfect at this. For sure, I'm not perfect at this at all. Okay. So I don't want to pretend that I'm up here on my high horse, as they say, and that I do this all the time. No. I purchase a lot of frozen food as well for some smoothies and for lunch, quick on the go, because I always want to make sure that I'm able to make the right choice. So the right choice is to say, oh, I don't have this, that, or the other thing. Well, I guess today is just going to be whatever, takeout, etc. So no, for me, I always have frozen broccoli. I have frozen cauliflower, riced cauliflower. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I always have frozen wild salmon. I've got frozen wild, I think it's cod. I have frozen blueberries all the time, wild blueberries. I have frozen mixed berries. I know we have frozen bananas that we chop up and put in there. So there's a lot of frozen food as well. I always have my hemp hearts to the side, but that's not what we're talking about here today. So that allows me to always be prepared. But it's nice to be able to also get local organic, and we do. We have food co-ops with a couple local places in Boston that we can grab those, and then we do in Maine as well. So I want to share with you right now what is seasonal for the springtime, and then I'll provide you with lots of links that you can do additional research on as well. So now we're going to review all of the different fruit, and there's only about, I would say, 15 to 20 that we're going to look at for each season that are a little, I would say, just more common. There's certainly more out there that you can look at. This is not going to be your only resource. I'm going to give you a lot more resources today at stephencabral.com/1930. Of course, we have the PDF of the big 3 takeaways right there, and we typically list those links as well. So let's go over your spring veggies, and let's do those in pretty close to alphabetical order. All right, so here's your spring veggies, and I've got a few more. I have 2 different lists for you, and again, I'll list those. I'll make it easy for you over at episode 1930. So we'll give you these in pretty close to alphabetical order. I have multiple lists. I'm going to go over both those lists. There'll be a little bit of overlap. All right, so this spring we have, and this is again for the we'll call it United States, Canada, moving into Western-based Europe, okay? So we have asparagus, we have beets, we have cherries, we have cauliflower, we have collard greens, we have kale, we have mangoes, mushrooms, peas, garlic, radishes, sweet potatoes, strawberries, scallions, spinach, and rhubarb. All right, I'm going to read the other list. Again, there'll be a little bit of overlap, but I do hope that you tuned into yesterday's show, episode 1929. If you didn't, I would go back right after the show and check that out, because the cherries, the collard greens, the kale, the strawberries, and the spinach all need to be purchased organic or really not at all. And the reason is those, you're not able to wash off the harmful pesticides. But again, more on that yesterday. I gave you the whole Clean 15 and I gave you the Dirty Dozen. Clean 15, if you can't purchase all organic, those can be purchased conventional, and then you can use the homemade wash that I gave you at the end of the show. And then the Dirty Dozen, again, should be purchased organic or not at all. And the reason is that you just can't wash off those pesticides. And we know those pesticides can lead to some pretty nasty potential cancer or disease in the body. All right, so let's go over the list and see the overlap we might find. We've got, for spring, apricots and asparagus and avocados and cabbage and garlic and kale and kiwi, lettuce, mushrooms, onions, peas, pineapples, radishes, rhubarb, spinach, strawberries, Swiss chard, and turnips. All right, so we get a lot of those dark leafy greens. So if you're thinking about, oh, well, what about other forms of lettuce? Okay, those are coming up now as well. So those are absolutely part of the list. We've got a lot of those the bulb-based veggies in there. We've got the garlic, we've got scallions, right? Those are part of the same family. We have onions. So a lot of these detox-based ones, cabbage, etc. So all of these foods, what do you mean? Try to incorporate more of those into your diet. So right now during the springtime, nature gave us these foods which are also beneficial to our body. Many of them help with I would say after a winter of the body being a little bit more acidic, especially if you live in cold climates. Now, when I say acidic, again, people right away jump to the pH of the blood. And I always have to leave the caveat that I understand that your blood maintains 7.356 pH. I get it. Typically never above a 5, typically never below 7.2. So 7.5, 7.2. However, your body can build up more acids, which is not necessarily abnormal during the colder weather, which helps with the heat in the body. Again, this has been studied for many, many years as well. And part of the allergy season is also eliminating, as traditional Chinese medicine would say, and I spent time at a traditional Chinese medicine hospital as an intern in Old Beijing over a decade ago now. And this is this is a lot of what we learned. This is a lot of how we help people. You eliminate a lot of that heat and acid essentially in the body, which is just waste. Remember, all waste breaks down in the body. All metabolic waste breaks down to acids. That's why you can run an organic acids test and look at those acids. So what we do is we get a lot of these, and I hate using these buzzwords, but we get a lot of these cleansing foods during the spring to remove a lot of this waste from the body. And so many of them are just loaded with your B vitamins, and we've got our sulfur-based detox ones, right? I mean, look at all the cruciferous vegetables. We have kale, and we've got other sulfur-based ones like cabbage and garlic, and we have onions. And let's see what else we have in here. Radishes, rhubarb, all these things, so great for the body. So I just want you to know that one of our jobs is to just work as much as we can with nature in order to allow nature in the foods that it provides to us in order to be able to heal our body. So the last thing I want to bring to you that will make this even easier potentially, because you can actually just go to your local farmers markets. You can make you can create relationships and make friends with your local farmers. You can support your local farmers. They need you. We cannot have, especially in the United States, well, all over the world, we cannot have our farming system turn into 3 or 4 only farms in the entire world that control all food production. It's so dangerous. We don't want it to be too late. So we want to support our local farmers, start your own small garden if you'd like in your backyard or on your roof. And it's so easy to do. It honestly is. I'm not a gardener, but I started my own 4 or 5 years ago in Maine. And I just have 5 planter boxes to keep it off the ground, away from all the chipmunks, because we have 1 million chipmunks. And we grow all sorts of veggies that we eat for the entire late summer, I would say mid to late summer, and then all fall. So really great stuff. You can certainly at least offset that a little bit yourself. And if you don't choose to, that's okay too. You can go to localharvest.org. All right. So localharvest.org. There are other places to find a local farmers market. This is not the only place. So please do look around for other places. But I've used localharvest.org for so many years. And so I just want to keep on recommending them. You can literally just type in your zip code. You can type in your city. You can type in a farm that you're looking for, a CSA that you're looking for, really whatever you'd like. It's pretty sophisticated. And I just think that it's a really nice spot. I don't know anything about localharvest.org, except that I've been recommending and using them for many years, and people have been pretty happy with them. So feel free, though. I would love to hear from you today, whether it's in the comments on the YouTube video or whether it's in the comments on Instagram. Let us know one of your favorite places to find local farmers markets. And also feel free to add any additional foods that I may not have listed for those spring-based foods. Hopefully this has been helpful, everyone. Again, always looking to see what your comments are. Every single season, I will bring you the new seasonal foods and why we're using them, like the spring foods, to help remove a lot of the heat, remove a lot of the acids that we're talking about, and really eat with the season, nourish our bodies for how it was meant to be nourished as well. Not saying you can't use other fruits and vegetables as well. I do. I eat berries, all season. I eat all sorts of things every single day. But I do want you to know that if you can include more of the seasonal based foods that are actually growing right now, today, being picked at its peak ripeness, it's a great thing to start to incorporate. So thank you so much for tuning in. Always appreciate your support, your reviews, your downloads, your subscribes, all of those great things. And of course, do feel free to share this show with anyone else you believe it could serve.